Trump rules out sending U.S. troops to Ukraine as part of peace deal. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has made it clear that he will not send American troops to Ukraine as part of any peace settlement if he returns to the White House. His remarks once again placed him at the center of the global debate on the war, which has been raging for more than 2 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. Trump's position signals a sharp departure from the Biden administration's approach and underscores his long-held skepticism toward U.S. military entanglements abroad. Trump, speaking in a nationally broadcast interview, argued that America's priority should be peace through negotiation, not escalation. "We are not going to put American boys and girls in Ukraine to fight a war that is not ours," he said. He stressed that his administration, if restored, would seek to push both Russia and Ukraine toward an agreement that would prevent further loss of life. However, his refusal to commit troops has raised concerns among allies in Europe who fear that such a stance might embolden Moscow and weaken Western unity. Throughout his campaign, Trump has promised that he could end the conflict within 24 hours of returning to office, though he has not elaborated on the specific steps he would take. Analysts believe his strategy would involve pressuring Kyiv to make concessions, particularly on territorial disputes, in order to secure a ceasefire. This is a position that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has firmly rejected, insisting that Ukraine will not give up its sovereignty or land. The Biden administration, in contrast, has committed tens of billions of dollars in weapons, ammunition, and financial support to Ukraine, framing the war as a global struggle between democracy and authoritarianism. President Joe Biden has repeatedly stated that defending Ukraine is vital to safeguarding the rules-based international order. Trump's rejection of direct military involvement marks a clear division between the two leaders' foreign policy philosophies. For Trump's supporters, his words reflect a pragmatic approach to avoiding another endless war. Many within his base believe the U.S. has already spent too much in foreign wars with little return and argue that Europe must take greater responsibility for its own security. Trump has repeatedly criticized NATO allies for not spending enough on defense, and he used the Ukraine war to reinforce his message that Europe cannot continue relying on American protection without shouldering more of the burden. In Kyiv, Trump's statement has been met with caution. Ukrainian officials have stressed the importance of bipartisan U.S. support for their war effort and avoided openly criticizing Trump. But privately, there are concerns that a Trump administration could pressure Ukraine into a settlement that undermines its sovereignty. Zelensky has said Ukraine is willing to talk about peace but only under conditions that respect its independence and territorial integrity. In Moscow, Trump's comments are likely to be welcomed. Russian President Vladimir Putin has long sought to portray the conflict as a war between Russia and the West, with Washington as the main player backing Kyiv. The idea that the U.S. might step back from its leading role could be perceived in Moscow as a strategic opening. Analysts note, however, that Putin might not rush to compromise, believing that time is on Russia's side if Western support for Ukraine begins to fracture. European leaders, especially in Eastern Europe, reacted with unease. Countries such as Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have consistently warned that Russia's ambitions extend beyond Ukraine and that only a strong U.S. and NATO commitment can deter further aggression. Trump's remarks reignited debate within NATO over Europe's long-term security architecture, with some officials arguing that the continent must accelerate its rearmament in case Washington reduces its engagement. Trump's refusal to send U.S. troops is consistent with his broader foreign policy vision, which emphasizes American interests over what he calls global policing. During his first term, he pushed NATO allies to meet their defense spending targets and questioned America's commitments abroad. His critics argue that this approach undermines alliances and emboldens adversaries, while his supporters see it as a necessary correction to decades of costly foreign interventions. The political implications of Trump's statement are significant. Domestically, it resonates with voters who are weary of foreign wars and want Washington to prioritize domestic issues such as the economy, border security, and crime. Internationally, it raises uncertainty about America's future role in Europe's defense. With the 2024 U.S. election approaching, world leaders are closely watching Trump's campaign rhetoric to prepare for the possibility of his return to power. The debate over whether American troops should ever be involved in Ukraine reflects a deeper divide in U.S. foreign policy thinking. For decades, Washington has seen itself as the guarantor of European security through NATO. Trump challenges that assumption by questioning whether American lives should be risked for conflicts thousands of miles away. His stance underscores a shift toward a more restrained foreign policy that prioritizes diplomacy